commit harm against other people should be punished and restrained from continuing to do that activity. And this has been the case for a long, long time. It's just the solution offered is different, of course, than what the pro-interventionist regulatory people think. And what an interesting dynamic has come out of this is that when you start to dive down and really look at what is the suggested solution, it turns out that the free market people, at least of the Rothbardian variety, are far less tolerant of pollution and putting poison in the soil and in the water than are the mainstream regulation types, because they all look at not at what actual harms were suffered by any particular people, but at what is a socially optimal or what is an efficient level of pollution. And interestingly, this contrast was outlined in some detail back in 2016, and I think that was the last time we really treated this topic with at any extensive level at Mises.org. But it was Tyler Cowen, who I do not consider to be libertarian or anything like that, but has a decent understanding of how it works. And he noted that Paul Krugman was freaking out about something at the time, it doesn't even matter, about inflation or about pollution, and saying, well, if these free market people had their way, there would just be pollution everywhere all the time, because as long as big business does it, they can poison as many people as they want. And Cowen pointed out that, contrary to what Krugman seemed to be thinking, if you took the Rothbardian position on this, it would be far more costly to big business and to polluters than would the sort of regulatory state that Krugman supports. And I'll just quote what Cowen says here back in 2016. He says, Krugman's position is the opposite of the correct criticism. And so Cowen's setting up a criticism of the Rothbardian people anyway, but it's a different one from Krugman's. The main problem with classical libertarianism is that it doesn't allow enough pollution. Under libertarian theory, pollution is a form of violent aggression that should be banned, as Murray Rothbard insisted numerous times. Okay, but what about actual practice once all those special interest groups start having their say? That is, the people who want to punish the polluters. Historically, under the more limited government of the 19th century, it was big business that wanted to move away from the unpredictable local and litigation-driven methods of control, that is, actual tort cases in the court system, and toward a more, this is what big business wanted, they wanted to move toward a more systematic regulatory approach at the national level. So what this means is that business has wanted the regulation, they've wanted sort of this managed level of pollution because it set into place a tolerable, legally tolerable amount of pollution that you could actually pump into the environment and then be covered and not have to worry about some guy downstream who you might have poisoned his farm or his fish hatchery, who knows what. And then it's up to the courts to determine in that specific case how much harm needs to be paid out and so on. Instead, what they wanted was a regulatory state that said, oh, well, we have determined this is the acceptable amount of pollution. As long as you stay below this, then you're more or less covered legally, unless we can prove negligence or some other issue like that. So it actually, by adopting the regulatory approach, rather than the Rothbardian approach, you're setting up a system where punishments can actually potentially be much, much higher against polluters, and it's limited by state regulation instead. And we're told by Cowen that that's actually the correct approach, that he doesn't like Rothbardianism either because it's too stringent. He thinks that the government should determine what the socially optimal level and quote-unquote efficient level of pollution then is. Because if you just let everybody sue people who poison the water, well, those big businesses will just completely go out of business, and we can't have that. So there's this belief that government needs to artificially create these legal environments where people can actually poison you, but that we've determined as a society we should tolerate that poisoning because it's good for everybody. So you can see the competing views there, whereas of course I have to agree with the Rothbardian view. Look, if you poison people, you should look out for that, and you should be held accountable, and might have to endure big payouts, but that's what insurance companies are for. And if you can't be trusted to take proactive steps to avoid poisoning people, well, then you can't get insurance, and that's your problem. That's not quote-unquote society's problem. So just in those, that's because it's kind of this basic outline there, that this critique of libertarianism is just being fine. Pollution is actually, it's the opposite. That is true, and the concern over decades has been how to create a way to allow for more pollution while still, quote-unquote, holding companies accountable somehow. And so you can take your pick there. You can debate which one you want. The Rothbardian one, however, I think objectively is the more stringent stance.
And of course, even in a situation like this, when we're dealing with chemical fallout that is not kind of the byproduct of normal output from a factory, right, or something like that. It's not. The nuclear power plant has made some backroom deal with the shady politician.